She stood alone, at the bottom of the fire escape, one hand on the rusty railing, the other clutching a ragged stuffed rabbit. Her voice was barely more than a whisper, but it stopped me cold. "If you carry me up, I'll tell you a secret." It had been a long day. I was wrapping up a furnace repair job at the town's crumbling library when I first saw her tiny frame, pale face, pink hat slipping to one side. She couldn't have been more than 4, and yet she looked up at me like she'd lived 100 years. "My name is Mason Carter. I'm a maintenance guy in Brooksville, Tennessee. I fix boilers, patch drywall, unclog drains, and apparently, on that day, I carried small strangers up iron staircases. I didn't know then that her name was Lily. I didn't know she lived on the 3rd floor of the building next door. I didn't know her elevator had been out for weeks. All I knew was that something in her tone, too steady, too knowing, cut through the noise in my head and said, 'This matters.' 'Do you live here all by yourself?' I asked as I adjusted my grip and started up the first flight of metal stairs. Her tiny body weighed barely anything yet. Something about this climb already felt heavier than the toolbox I carried daily. Lily nodded. "With Grandma Eleanor, but the elevator broke last week, and now we don't go out much unless it's really important." The metal staircase groaned under my boots. I glanced at the uneven rust patches and loose bolts, making a mental note to speak with the landlord again, though that guy barely answered his phone, let alone fixed anything. "She gets real tired, you know," Lily continued. "Grandma, I mean. She tries to carry me sometimes, but her knees shake, and once she almost fell. I don't want her to get hurt." It was strange hearing a 4-year-old worry so deliberately about someone else. Most kids I knew at that age were wrapped in cartoons and cookies. Not this one. There was a quiet resilience to her voice, like she'd watched more hardship than she should have. "Have you lived here long?" I asked, shifting her weight slightly as we turned the 2nd floor landing. "Since my mommy got sick. Grandma said this place was safer. We came here last winter, and I got a pink hat." I looked down at the hat in question, fluffy hand-knit with a lopsided pom-pom. It looked like it had seen better days, but Lily wore it like a crown. "What happened to your mom?" I asked, then instantly regretted it. "She's in the stars now," Lily said quietly. "That's what Grandma says. She says Mommy watches me from up there and sends love through the wind." I swallowed the sudden lump in my throat. I wasn't a man easily shaken, but there was something about the matter-of-fact way she delivered grief that hit harder than any wrench ever could. "That's a beautiful way to think about her," I said. "She liked tulips," Lily added. "We had one in a pot on our old window. It died when we moved. I cried for 3 days, but Grandma told me it was just sleeping in the dirt. She was talking like someone twice her age, maybe more, and she never let go of that stuffed rabbit. Its fur was matted the seams, barely holding. Still, she hugged it as if it were the only thing keeping her grounded. As we reached the 3rd floor, she gestured toward a door with peeling green paint. "That's where Mr. Callahan lives. He gives me cinnamon candy when Grandma lets me knock. Friendly guy. He smells like old paper and socks," she said with a giggle. "But I like him. He's lonely." I smiled. The building was clearly a world of its own. Lily had stories about every door, every sound, every creak in the floorboards. It amazed me how much she noticed, how deeply she cared. "You always this chatty with strangers," I teased. "You're not a stranger anymore. You carried me." I laughed. "Well, I guess that makes us friends now, huh?" "No," she said firmly, "not friends, helpers. That's better." We were nearing her apartment when the hallway light above flickered and buzzed. Lily pointed up. "That's been doing that since Tuesday. Grandma says it's haunted." "Maybe it just needs a new bulb," I suggested. "Or maybe it's Grandpa Fred saying hi." "Grandpa Fred? He lived here before me. His picture's on the bookshelf. He always wore suspenders and had jelly beans in his pockets." It was like this child had a whole universe in her head. Layers of people love and loss all wrapped in one 4-year-old girl with clear eyes and shoes that squeaked. "Here we are," she said, motioning to a door with a butterfly sticker on it. "This is 3C. I was about to knock when she grabbed my sleeve. "Wait," she whispered. "Before we go in, I still owe you my secret." "You don't have to," I said, but she shook her head. "I do. It's part of the deal." She leaned closer, pressing her mouth near my ear. Her breath was warm and smelled faintly of bubble gum. "The secret is, you can't fix everything with your hands. Some things you fix with your heart." I froze. There it was again, that depth. That eerie, wise beyond years voice that made me feel like I was standing in front of someone ancient, wrapped in a child's skin. "Where did you learn that?" I asked softly. She shrugged. "From watching Grandma cry when nobody's looking, and from how she stops crying when I hold her hand." I didn't know what to say. All I could do was nod and blink the heat from behind my eyes. The door opened suddenly, and a woman in her 70s appeared. Her silver hair was pulled back into a tight bun, and her eyes were rimmed with worry. "Lily," she said, voice trembling with relief. "Hi, Grandma," Lily chirped like nothing in the world was amiss. "This is Mason. He helped me." I gently set her down, and she scampered inside. The woman turned to me, hands still trembling. "Thank you. I've been worried sick. That elevator's been a nightmare." "I know. I've fixed it twice this month, but the motor's shot. You need a full replacement." She sighed. "Tell that to the building owner." I nodded. "I'll try again." "I'm Eleanor," she added, "and I really appreciate you looking after her." "She's something special," I said. "Reminds me of someone I used to know." Her expression softened. "That little girl has seen more than her share. Her mother passed last year, and her father, he's not in the picture. I'm doing what I can, but it's hard. Some days it's real hard." I looked into her eyes and saw the same kind of exhaustion I'd seen in single parents, night shift nurses, and teachers stretched thin. But beneath it, there was love. So much love. "She told me a secret," I said. Eleanor raised a brow. "Oh," I nodded. "That you fix things with your heart." Tears welled in her eyes. "She told you that?" I nodded again, unsure what else to say. "She's been saying things like that more and more lately. Like she's trying to teach me something I didn't know I needed." "She already has," I replied. As I turned to leave, Lily came running out with a drawing in her hand. "For you," she said. It showed two stick figures, one carrying the other, with a staircase below and big red hearts floating above. "This is us," she beamed. "You're the big one." I knelt down, taking the paper with care. "Thank you, Lily. I'll keep this forever." She hugged me, her tiny arms squeezing tight. "Don't forget the secret." "Never," I whispered. Walking back down the stairs alone felt heavier somehow, like I was carrying something invisible now, something precious. The next day, I called the building owner again, this time threatening to contact code enforcement. He finally caved, said he'd get the elevator replaced within the month. In the meantime, I checked on Eleanor and Lily whenever I could. I brought groceries, replaced the flickering light, repaired the leaky faucet, fixed the loose tiles in the hallway. But more than that, I started listening to Lily's stories, to Eleanor's memories, to the quiet hum of a life built on survival sacrifice and soft-spoken strength. One night, as I sat with them over cocoa, Eleanor said, "You're part of this family now, you know." I didn't argue. I didn't need to. Because in my heart, I already felt it. It was a Thursday when everything changed. I'd stopped by Eleanor's apartment after a long morning, replacing a burst pipe in the community center basement. I was tired, my back ached, and all I wanted was to return the wrench I'd borrowed the week before and maybe share a cookie if Lily had one of her surprise stashes waiting. But the door was already open. That wasn't like them. Eleanor always kept it locked chain, fastened, especially with Lily inside. I knocked anyway, a quiet tap. No answer. I stepped in slowly, calling out Eleanor Lily. There was a sound from the back, barely a whisper, like the shuffling of feet against carpet. I moved toward it, instincts on edge. That's when I saw Lily. She was curled in a blanket on the couch, eyes half-lidded, cheeks pale and damp with sweat. Hey there, I said gently, kneeling beside her. What's going on? She's been throwing up since last night. Eleanor's voice came from behind me. She looked more frazzled than I'd ever seen, her hair undone, eyes red. I didn't know what to do. Her doctor's office said they're overbooked today. Said to wait until tomorrow, unless it's an emergency. This looks like an emergency, I said, my voice firmer than I intended. Eleanor nodded, hands trembling. I can't carry her. I thought maybe she just had a bug, but now she's barely talking. I'll drive you, I said without hesitation. I scooped Lily into my arms. She didn't protest. That scared me more than anything. The ride to the ER was a blur of red lights and worry. Eleanor kept whispering things in the back seat, reassurances to Lily, prayers under her breath. I gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. At the hospital, we were rushed in faster than I expected. One look at Lily's pale face, and the triage nurse activated a flurry of motion. Monitors beeped, voices layered over each other. A curtain was drawn around the bed. Eleanor and I sat in the corner, quiet, helpless. The doctor came in half an hour later with a clipboard and the kind of expression that makes your stomach fall. She's dehydrated and her white blood cell count is dangerously high, he explained. We're running more tests, but given her history and symptoms, we're concerned about a possible infection related to her underlying condition. Eleanor nodded slowly. She had a bone marrow issue when she was younger. They said it could come back. The doctor gave a tight professional smile. We're doing everything we can, but she'll need to be admitted, possibly for several days. I watched Eleanor crumble quietly, politely, the way women who've held the world together for too long tend to fall apart. She leaned forward, hands clasped, whispering something I couldn't hear. I'll stay, I said. She looked up, startled. Mason, you don't have to. I want to, and I did. More than I'd wanted anything in a long time. That night, I sat beside Lily's hospital bed, while machines hummed around her. She was hooked up to an IV and slept through most of the evening. Occasionally she stirred, murmuring half-dreamed words. Mommy, rabbit, stairs. I didn't leave. I couldn't. Something in me had latched on to that tiny spark of trust she'd given me the day we met. The drawing she'd given me was still in my wallet, folded neatly beside a faded picture of my own daughter from years ago. The next morning, Lily was awake. Barely. She looked at me with bleary eyes. You stayed. Of course, I said, smoothing her hair back. Are you scared? Of what? That I won't get better. The question hit me in the gut, but I nodded a little. She reached out a hand and touched mine. I'm not scared. Grandma says, love makes you strong, even when you're weak. You believe that? She smiled faintly. I have to. The following days were a roller coaster. Some hours she seemed stronger. Others she barely responded. I took shifts with Eleanor, making coffee runs, talking to nurses, sitting by the window with a book I couldn't concentrate on. One night around 2 a.m., Eleanor nudged me awake. She's asking for you. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and hurried into the room. Lily was sitting up, a little pale, but alert. I had a dream, she said. Tell me. There were stairs, and you were carrying me, but they went up forever and ever, like into the clouds. And Mommy was there. She said I could come, but only if I wanted to. I swallowed. What did you say? I said I wanted to stay, with you and Grandma. And she smiled. Tears pricked my eyes. She said she was proud of me, and proud of you too, for listening to the secret. Lily nodded, and for sharing it. I didn't sleep that night. I sat beside her, holding her hand watching her chest rise and fall with every fragile breath. By day 5, her color was returning. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. Antibiotics were working. Her numbers looked better. She even asked for apple juice and graham crackers. Eleanor cried when the doctor said she might go home in 2 more days. I did too, quietly, in the hallway. On the 7th day, Lily was discharged. I carried her again, this time from the hospital entrance to my truck, and as we drove back, she pointed out things she hadn't seen in days. Trees that had changed colors, a new mural on the library wall, a balloon stuck in a power line. When we reached the apartment, I helped her up the newly repaired elevator. She squealed when the doors opened and it moved smoothly. "It works. It's magic." "No," I said, "it's mechanics." "Same thing," she replied. Eleanor met us at the door with open arms. "I missed home," Lily said, as she sank into the couch. "You and me both," Eleanor replied, kissing her forehead. That evening, we sat around their kitchen table. Lily colored, while Eleanor and I shared leftovers from the hospital cafeteria. Everything tasted better at home. "Do you think people change?" Eleanor asked after a while. I nodded. "Yeah, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once." "You've changed." I shrugged. "Maybe I just remembered who I was supposed to be." She smiled. "You're part of us now, whether you like it or not." "I like it." Lily piped up from her drawing. "We should have a secret handshake." "A what?" "A secret handshake. For helpers." We spent the next 20 minutes creating one complete with finger snaps, elbow bumps, and a final touch of both palms to the heart. It was ridiculous and perfect. Later, as I prepared to leave, Lily handed me another drawing. This one showed the 3 of us standing under a rainbow with the words "Family of the Heart" written in crayon. I didn't say anything. I couldn't, but I folded it carefully and placed it next to the first one in my wallet. That night, I walked home under the stars, thinking of Lily's dream. The stairs that went up forever. The choice to stay. The love that made her strong. And I knew without doubt that my life had just shifted in a way I could never fully explain. After Lily returned home from the hospital, something shifted in me. Subtle at first, like the quiet creak of old floorboards that you only notice when everything else falls silent. But it grew louder, deeper, more persistent, and soon it was impossible to ignore. I began to look at the world differently, not through the lens of what needed fixing, but through the lens of who needed understanding. Before Lily, I'd spent most of my life patching holes in drywall, tightening bolts, replacing filters, and walking away once the job was done. My satisfaction came from things that worked, from problems I could identify and solve with tools in my hands. I measured my days in checklists, my worth in efficiency, but after Lily, things weren't so simple. I found myself lingering in conversations longer than I used to, not because I had extra time, but because I realized that time was the most valuable thing I could give. When Mrs. Coleman from the corner unit invited me in for tea after I fixed her leaking faucet, I stayed. She told me about her late husband's jazz records, how he used to play saxophone on Saturday nights and dance with her in the living room. I'd heard the music once muffled through the wall, but now I heard the story behind the song. When I walked past the convenience store where Mr. Allen sat most evenings with his cup of black coffee, I stopped to ask how he was doing instead of just nodding. He told me about his son, the one who stopped calling years ago. I didn't have answers, but I listened, and he smiled when I left, like maybe the silence hurt a little less that night. Even in my own home, things began to feel different. I started writing letters to my daughter Layla. She lived states away with her mom, and though we hadn't spoken much in recent years, I wrote anyway. Sometimes about my day, sometimes about Lily. I didn't know if I'd send them all, but writing them made me feel closer to something I'd lost a long time ago. One afternoon, as I walked into the local diner for lunch, the waitress Janelle, always quick with a refill and a joke, paused mid-pour. "You look like a man who's carrying something," she said. I smiled. "A toolbox and a secret." "Sounds heavy," she replied, sliding me a slice of pie on the house. "Whatever it is, you look lighter lately. Like you've remembered something important." Maybe I had. I started taking on fewer jobs. Not because I didn't need the money, truth be told I did, but because I wanted to make space. Space for Lily, for Eleanor, for conversations that didn't have to be rushed. I spent afternoons fixing things around their apartment, even when nothing was broken. One day, it was re-corking the tub. The next, it was reorganizing the kitchen cabinets because Eleanor's arthritis made the top shelves hard to reach. "I don't know what we'd do without you," she said one evening, handing me a glass of lemonade as Lily worked on a puzzle nearby. "I think you'd be just fine," I replied. She smiled. "You know you're more than just a fixer, Mason." "I'm trying to be," I said. Later that night, Lily and I sat on the floor, piecing together a 500-piece picture of a lighthouse. Her fingers were still small, but quick, methodical. She had an eye for patterns, spotting edge pieces faster than I could. "You know what's funny?" she said, as she fit two pieces together. "Puzzles are like people. How's that? Sometimes they look like they don't fit, but when you try again, slow and gentle, they snap together just right." I chuckled. "That's a pretty wise thing to say." She shrugged. "Grandma says I have an old soul. I think you have a big heart." She looked up at me, serious. "Hearts can fix more than hands." "Remember?" "I remember," I said softly. A few days later, I got a call from a friend at the community center. The heating system was acting up again, and they needed someone who knew its quirks. I agreed to help, but I brought Lily and Eleanor with me. The staff set them up with snacks and crafts while I worked. As I twisted copper pipe and adjusted pressure valves, I heard Lily's laughter echo from the main hall. It was light, contagious. People were drawn to her. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room, even in a crowd. One of the volunteers, a teenager named Marcus, sat with her for over an hour, building a popsicle stick castle. "You her dad?" he asked me as I packed up my tools. "No," I said, "but she's family." He nodded. "She's cool. Told me I should give my mom more hugs. She's right." He laughed. "Yeah, she is." I realized that Lily was doing what I had started to learn, offering presence. Not advice, not solutions, just presence. And somehow, that was enough. More than enough. A week later, Lily insisted we build a birdhouse together. She'd seen a nest outside her window and wanted to give the birds a better option. We spent the whole afternoon measuring, sawing, sanding. She painted it bright yellow with blue trim, declaring it the Sunshine Hotel. We hung it near the fire escape where we'd first met. "Now birds won't be scared," she said. "Even if they're small, they'll know someone made a place just for them." It hit me then. That's what Eleanor had done for Lily, and what Lily was now doing for everyone around her. And maybe in my own clumsy way, it's what I was trying to do too. Make space, offer shelter, become a safe place for someone to land. It was humbling and it was healing, because in making room for others, I was starting to fill the empty corners inside myself. Not with noise or busyness, but with meaning, with connection, with a renewed sense of purpose. I wasn't just fixing things anymore, I was being fixed. One quiet Sunday, Lily asked if I believed in angels. "I'm not sure," I admitted. "I think they're real," she said, "but they don't always have wings. Sometimes they have tools and old trucks and kind eyes." I laughed. "Are you saying I'm an angel?" "No," she said, giggling. "I'm saying you're almost there." And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe that wasn't such a crazy thing to believe. 3 weeks after Lily came home from the hospital, I got a call from a woman named Jenna Phillips. She ran a neighborhood outreach program funded by the city, mostly volunteer-driven, and had heard about the repairs I'd done for Eleanor's building and the community center. She asked if I'd consider taking on a part-time position as the program's lead maintenance coordinator. Honestly, she said, we don't need someone who just knows tools. We need someone who understands people. I was surprised. Me, I'd worked blue-collar jobs my whole life. I didn't have fancy credentials. I didn't lead anything. But the way she spoke like what I'd done mattered more than I realized, made me pause. I'll think about it, I told her. Later that night, I told Eleanor about the offer, while she rinsed dishes, and Lily dried them with a towel far too large for her hands. You'd be perfect, Eleanor said. And it sounds like something more stable. It's more hours, better pay, I admitted, but I'd have less time during the day for odd jobs around here. Lily looked up. You mean you won't visit us anymore? No, sweet pea, I said quickly. I'll always visit, just maybe not every afternoon. She thought about that for a moment, then nodded solemnly. Okay, but only if you still come for pancakes on Sunday. Deal? The next morning, I went to see the space Jenna wanted me to manage. It was in the back of an old firehouse, converted into a multi-use center with rooms for workshop storage and a small tool library. The place was a mess. Broken shelves, dusty corners, wires hanging like vines. But I saw potential. It's not much yet, Jenna said, but we're hoping it can become a repair and mentorship hub, fixing things, teaching kids basic skills, giving folks a place to come when they need more than just a handout. Something clicked. Let's do it, I said. Within days, I was neck-deep in cleaning and organizing. I sorted through old donations, rusted hammers, mismatched screws, a coffee can full of loose bolts, and created a workspace that felt alive. I built shelves, rewired outlets, installed proper lighting, painted the walls a soft gray blue that Lily later declared almost like sky. People began to trickle in. A single mum who needed help fixing a broken crib, an elderly man whose walker had a wobbly wheel, a teenager named Darnell who wanted to learn how to repair bicycles. I didn't just fix their things, I taught them how to do it themselves. One Saturday, Lily came in with Eleanor holding a stack of handmade flyers. What's this? I asked. Our open house, Lily beamed. We made 30 of them. Mrs. Coleman said she'd put one in the laundromat window. I chuckled. I guess you're my marketing department now. She stood proudly next to the workbench. We're helpers, remember? The open house happened the following weekend. We had cookies, lemonade, music, and more people than I expected. Jenna gave a little speech, thanking the volunteers. Eleanor donated a few plants to brighten the place. Lily wore a name tag that said, Official Welcomer. That day, something changed again. Not just in me, but in the whole space. It stopped being a dusty backroom. It became a heart of the neighborhood. A place where people showed up, not just to get help, but to be part of something. And I realized I was finally building more than furniture or fences. I was building community. That night, as I locked up, Lily skipped beside me, holding a leftover cookie. You're smiling weird, she said. Am I? Yep, that's your proud smile. I laughed. Maybe I am proud. You should be. I looked down at her. You know none of this would have happened if you hadn't asked me to carry you that day. She tilted her head. You think so? I know so. Then I'm glad the elevator broke. We both laughed, and I couldn't help but marvel at how wisdom so often comes in pint-sized packages. Over the next few months, things continued to grow. We added more workshops, basic plumbing, electrical safety, even woodworking for kids. I brought in friends I knew from past jobs, people who had skills and stories worth sharing. We hosted community repair days, where folks brought in broken lamps, toasters, clocks, and left with fixed items and fuller hearts. Lily became a regular fixture at the shop. She painted signs labeled toolboxes, greeted visitors with high fives. Everyone knew her. Everyone adored her. One afternoon, while we were repairing a donated table, she asked, "Do you think we could fix sadness too?" I paused. "What do you mean?" "Well," she said, hammer in hand, "sometimes people come here looking really sad, like Grandma does when she looks at Mom's picture, but then they leave smiling. So maybe we fix that too." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think we do." She grinned. "Then we should build a sign that says, 'We fix things,' and hearts." It was cheesy. It was perfect. And it became our unofficial slogan, painted on reclaimed wood and hung above the door. That winter, when the power went out in several nearby blocks after an ice storm, our center became a warming station. We handed out blankets, hot drinks, and set up cots in the main room. Lily insisted on passing out cookies and coloring pages to the kids who came in. "This place is magic," one woman whispered as she sipped tea beside the heater. "It feels like someone built it just for us." I looked around at the room full of chatter, warmth, connection, and I realized she was right. But more than that, I realized this opportunity hadn't just changed my job. It had changed my life. I'd gone from man with a wrench to man with a mission. And it started with one girl, one flight of stairs, and one secret that had unraveled everything I thought I knew about what it meant to fix something. The first time I realized I'd changed wasn't during one of the big moments, not during the hospital stay, not during the open house, not even when Jenna handed me my first official paycheck with the city logo in the corner. It was at the grocery store. I was standing in the produce aisle, comparing 2 bags of apples, when an older man beside me dropped his cane. It clattered against the tile. In the past, I might have looked, maybe offered a quick assist, and gone back to my day. But this time, without thinking, I bent down, picked up the cane, and asked if he was all right. We ended up talking for 10 minutes. His name was Richard. He used to be a high school shop teacher, and he'd been feeling isolated since his wife passed last spring. I invited him to the center. He came the next day, and I realized then that I wasn't just reacting to the world anymore, I was reaching out to it. Back at the shop, things were humming. We'd built momentum, but we'd also built something else, trust. People came not just for repairs, but for community, for connection. They brought their kids, their grandparents. They stayed long after their toasters worked again, and they started volunteering, helping each other. I watched it happen daily. A young woman named Carla taught an elderly neighbor how to use a cordless drill. A retired electrician named Bill offered free safety checks for anyone rewiring their home. A group of teenagers began building birdhouses to donate to senior homes. It was happening all around me, hearts mending walls coming down. And through it all, Lily was there. She was our heartbeat, our mascot, our resident philosopher in pigtails. One rainy afternoon, she sat across from me at the workbench, legs swinging beneath the stool. "Do you know what I love about this place?" she asked. "What?" "That it feels like everyone's on the same team, even if they're different." I nodded. "Yeah, that's a rare thing. Grandma says people forget how to be kind when they're tired, but this place gives people their kindness back." She said it like it was the simplest thing in the world, and maybe it was. In that moment, I looked around the room and saw the evidence of her words. People of all backgrounds, all ages helping each other, sharing tools, stories, laughter. I felt full in a way I hadn't since Layla was small. Speaking of Layla, I'd kept writing letters every week. And one day, I got a reply. A real letter in her handwriting, with drawings from my granddaughter tucked inside. "Mom said you're helping a little girl named Lily," the letter began. "I think that's really cool. You used to carry me when I was sick, too." I cried reading that. The kind of cry that sneaks up on you, sudden, quiet, heavy. It was the first bridge rebuilt. A small one, but real. Eleanor noticed. You've softened, she said one evening as we shelled peas together. I think I've just remembered how to feel, I replied. She smiled. That's even better. We talked often about the things we'd seen change. The way neighbors checked in on each other now. The way kids use tools instead of just tapping screens. The way Lily had drawn people together with nothing more than a smile and a secret. You think it'll last, I asked once. It already has, she answered. She was right. One day Lily and I sat on the steps of the center, watching clouds drift across a pale blue sky. I think people forget how strong they are, she said, wrapping her arms around her stuffed rabbit. What do you mean? They think they have to be big, or loud, or brave to make a difference. But really, all they have to do is care. You figured that out already. She looked at me like I'd asked if water was wet. Of course, I chuckled. You're something else. She grinned. You're something else too, but in a good way. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the 2 drawings she'd given me, the first one of me, carrying her up the stairs, and the second of our family under a rainbow. They're my favorite things, I told her. She leaned her head against my arm. You're one of mine. From that point on, I started speaking more. Not just in greetings and small talk, but in real words about real things. I gave a talk at the local high school about vocational work, about how fixing things can be as powerful as building new ones. I shared stories, not just mine, but Lily's and Eleanor's and everyone who'd walked through our doors and left changed in some small way. People listened. And when I finished, a student came up to me with tears in her eyes and said, I didn't think people like you existed. I didn't know what to say. So I said the truth. People like me exist everywhere. You just have to stop long enough to see them. That became my mission. Not just fixing pipes or chairs, but noticing people, honoring them. And little by little, it changed how I moved through the world. I began noticing the woman who walked 3 blocks out of her way every morning to buy flowers for the nursing home. The teen who picked up trash outside the school even when no one was watching. The single dad at the park who made up silly songs so his toddler would stop crying. Everywhere I looked, there were quiet heroes, and I began telling their stories. The local paper even did a piece on us. They called it The Repairman with the Healing Heart. I hated the title, but I loved the attention it brought to the center. More donations came in, more volunteers, more love. Through it all, Lily was my anchor, my reminder of where it started. And as she grew stronger, her spirit grew too. She started reading to younger kids at the library, started her own mini fundraiser selling painted rocks with messages like, You matter and kindness wins. Every dollar goes to helping other helpers, she explained. One night, as I tucked her in, after Eleanor dozed off during movie night, she grabbed my hand. Do you know why I chose you that day, she whispered. What do you mean? When I asked you to carry me, I could have asked someone else. But I chose you. Why? Because you looked tired. But not in a mean way. In a I need a friend kind of way. I couldn't speak. So I thought, maybe if I gave you my secret, you'd feel better. And maybe you'd give it to someone else. And now look. She gestured around the room with sleepy eyes. Now we're a whole team of helpers. And in that moment, I knew I'd grown. Not just changed, grown into someone worth choosing. By spring, the little repair shop behind the old firehouse had transformed into something more than a project. It was a living, breathing community. And somehow, I'd become one of its pillars. Not because I planned to be, but because people needed someone who stayed. That's what I had become. Someone who stayed. The city awarded us a small grant to expand. We knocked out a wall to make room for more workbenches. Jenna found us an old van that we turned into a mobile repair unit so we could bring help to those who couldn't come to us. We called it the Fix-It Express, but Lily insisted we add the tagline, Love delivered daily. It stuck. One April morning, I found myself standing in front of a group of young volunteers, ages ranging from 10 to 16, holding a clipboard and trying to sound like I knew what I was doing. "All right, team," I said. "Today's mission: Mrs. Hendrix's front porch steps are collapsing. Mr. Lopez's fan needs rewiring, and someone donated a stack of chairs that need sanding and painting." They grinned, tools in hand, ready to go. Lily, now 5.5 going on 50, stood at my side with a walkie-talkie clipped to her belt and a hand-drawn supervisor badge around her neck. "I've already color-coded the assignments," she said, pointing to the chart she made using crayons. "We'll be efficient and kind." The kids cheered. It hit me. Then this wasn't about me anymore. It had never really been. It was about what people could become when someone simply gave them space tools and a reason to believe in themselves. That afternoon, Eleanor sat on the steps of the center, watching the kids work. She sipped tea from her floral mug and smiled as if she were watching her garden bloom. "You built something good, Mason," she said. "I just carried a little girl up some stairs," I replied. She chuckled. "And she carried you back down into your heart." She was right. Again. One evening, we hosted a block party, an idea Lily pitched with the argument, "If we're all friends, we should have cake together." Hard to argue with that kind of logic. We had barbecue music games. Kids raced in the parking lot. Grown-ups danced under string lights. The smell of grilled corn mixed with laughter and old vinyl crackling through speakers. Jenna gave a speech. So did I. But the best moment came when Lily stood on a milk crate, tapped a spoon against a juice box, and cleared her throat. "Hi, everyone," she said, loud and proud. "Thank you for coming. I just want you to know that this place is magic, but only because of you. Every hug, every fix, every laugh. You made this." There wasn't a dry eye in the lot. A few months later, I received a letter in the mail, official city stationery. They wanted to recognize me at the next council meeting for outstanding contribution to civic unity. I didn't want to go. I hated attention. Spotlight made me itch, but Lily convinced me. "You always tell people to show up," she said, "so show up for this." I did, and when they called my name and handed me a plaque, I looked out at the crowd and saw faces. I'd fixed faucets, for wired outlets, for built ramps, and birdhouses and bookshelves but more than that, I saw people who had fixed me. I kept the speech short. "I'm not here because I'm special," I said. "I'm here because I listened to a little girl who told me a secret. And that secret changed everything." Afterward, a man approached me. He was in his 60s, walked with a limp, wore a cap that said U.S. Navy. "You're the guy who carried the kid up the stairs, right?" he asked. I nodded. He held out his hand. "My daughter volunteers at your center. Says it's the only place she's ever felt seen." I shook his hand. "Thanks for building something that matters," he said. "Thanks for trusting her enough to let her come," I replied. Moments like that started happening often. Strangers became neighbors. Neighbors became family. And I finally understood what Lily meant when she whispered that love wasn't something you keep. It was something you gave away. One Saturday, while sorting tools in the back room, I found Lily sitting cross-legged on the floor, sketching in a notebook. "What you drawing?" I asked. "A new blueprint." "For what?" She held up the page. It showed a building tall and bright, filled with rooms labeled things like Fix-It Lab, Hug Hallway, and Kindness Kitchen. "This is the next center," she said matter-of-factly. "Bigger. For more people." I knelt beside her. "You dreaming big, huh?" "Always. Think we can build it." She looked me dead in the eyes. "We already started." She was right. Lily eventually started school, and every day after class, she came straight to the center. She'd pull out her homework munch on crackers and tell us what she learned. One day, she told me she wanted to be a doctor, but not the kind that fixes bones, she clarified. The kind that fixes feelings. "You'll be amazing at that," I said. She leaned against me. You already are. That night, I walked home, slowly watching porch lights flicker, on hearing dogs bark and kids laugh and screen doors creak. The world felt softer somehow, like maybe, just maybe, we were all getting better at carrying each other up the stairs. And I thought, this is what healing looks like. Not in hospitals, not in ceremonies, but in the spaces between people, in the silence that someone fills with kindness, in the gap where pain used to live and hope now settles in. It was never about fixing things. It was always about fixing each other. And thanks to Lily, I finally understood how. The most powerful lesson I've ever learned didn't come from a book, a teacher, or even a lifetime of experience. It came from a 4-year-old with a stuffed rabbit and a broken elevator. Lily taught me that love isn't something we ration or protect. It's not a currency we spend carefully or a treasure to be locked away. Love is action. Love is presence. Love is stepping up when no one else does and giving without expecting anything in return. We often assume healing requires grand gestures or professional expertise, but sometimes it begins with something as simple as listening or carrying someone physically or emotionally when they can't climb the stairs on their own. Lily reminded me that everyone has something to give, no matter how small. And when we give from the heart, something miraculous happens. We become whole. Brokenness isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of something more honest, more human, more connected. In a world that often rushes past quiet pain, Lily's secret whispers louder, give your love freely, and you'll never run out. If you're feeling stuck, disconnected, or uncertain about your place in the world, look around. Someone near you needs help, even if they haven't asked. You don't need a degree or a title to make a difference. You just need to show up. Start small, carry groceries for an elderly neighbor, fix a squeaky door for a friend, or simply ask someone how their day is, then really listen. These acts ripple outward. And if you're the one needing help, don't be afraid to accept it. Let others carry you sometimes. There's strength in allowing love in. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, a mechanic, or a child with a crayon, your kindness matters. The world doesn't need perfect people. It needs people willing to care. Start there.